All right. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another FNAF reaction. So, apparently, Sun Drop and Moon Drop from Security Breach is the key to solving the Mimic, which I don't think that is a huge revelation, huge spoiler, because ever since we've seen Sun Drop and Moon Drop from Security Breach, and then we saw the Mimic from the first time in the Security Breach DLC, the Ruin DLC, we saw their teeth was that same like piano keyboard like type of teeth and everything like that. So right then we knew there was some connection, but okay, I'm ready to hear it out and everything. And before we get into the video and everything, just want to say apparently Kindergarten, which not sure if you guys heard the game. I don't know if people relate to Kindergarten the same way as FNAF, but hey, the only connection I can think of is child murder. Apparently, Kindergarten 3 just released, so let me know if you want me to do streams on that. Just something in the background, gameplay wise, story wise, because Kindergarten legitimately is great. So let me know if you want me to do a playthrough of those games. I can do Kindergarten 3 or Kindergarten 1, 2, and 3 as well. I'm just trying to find stuff to stream in the background as we wait for 2K26 to come out at the end of August, at the end of this month. So anyway, back to this game's child murder.
Sun and Moon are the key to solving the Mimic. We always knew that these strange characters were in some way connected to our latest big bad, but thanks to Secret of the Mimic, we finally know why. And it tells us everything we need to know to end it all. Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's looking for lore all day and night. And I've been deep on the lore hunt, friends, thanks to the release of Secret of the Mimic. In the last episode, we focused heavily on the past and present of the Mimic, or Mimics. M1.
Ah, damn it, that's a spoiler, because I have not reacted to that one yet. Damn it. I hope it's not a spoiler.
And M2. M2 being the physical animatronic that we fight during the game, a copy of M1's programming gone wrong, that ends up locked away underneath Murray's costume manor, and eventually the Pizzaplex all those years later.
M2 is the one with the homicidal tendencies, the villain we play throughout the game and everything. M1 is Fiona in the F10N4 secret room in Secret of the Mimic. The good one, the nice one. And I'm assuming, based on that, there's a good one and a bad one, a villain one. The good one, Fiona, is M1, that's Sundrop. Then you have Moon, the villain threat, M2. Because Sun doesn't kill you, Moondrop does.
Thanks to the inclusion of the scoop and costumes from MCM, the spare parts we find lying around the facility, and, you know, the fact he's still doing the whole attack humans thing because of what Edwin did to it.
You're not him. You're not. Stop sounding like him.
M1, on the other hand, is a program that during the game is primarily appearing as Fiona, Edwin's deceased wife, trying to fix M2 in order that she can get her son, David, back. She convinces Edwin to build something called the Cradle, a large computer that mixes spawns from during Ruin. The problem is, as time's gone on, M1 gets removed from the Cradle and is used by Fazbear to create a VR game, Help Wanted, being taught all about Afton's escapades and therefore beginning to mimic his actions, creating glitch traps.
Huh. Interesting. I need to think about that for a second. Because everything we know about Glitch Trap is from Security Breach and Fazbear Entertainment as a way to, like, as a cost-cutting measure to cut corners because, well, think about what franchise we're talking about here. You know, they're not the best, upstanding, wholesome community business out there, right? So they do anything like cut corners. Shocker. A business that's all about child murder and is somehow able to stay open and have all these crazy adventures. From what we know, Fazbear Entertainment retrieves a lot of data, a lot of computer code, and then on the computer code, one of the things they retrieve is a computer chip that is corrupted with a virus of Glitchtrap. Glitchtrap is literally a computer virus. And they scanned that into the VR game that they're making. Because remember, recap, Help Wanted 1 and 2 are not just fun VR games for us to play, us as the fans play in the real world. They're actual VR games in universe, in the story. And as they're developing the VR game, trying to, come to amends, address the skeleton in the closet, and basically poke fun at the spooky ghost stories that Fazbear Entertainment have been accused of. As they're developing the game and the virus is able to take over, that's when Glitchtrap starts to appear. And that's when you get like Jeremy in the closet being crazy because they constantly see Glitchtrap and is constantly trying to get him to come to possession and come to the Glitchtrap cult. And that's what causes him to slice his face off with the paper guillotine shredder. And also causes someone like Vanessa to take after Jeremy, after his face was sliced off. Vanessa goes into the VR room just to test the game and everything. And that's when she also falls into possession of Glitchtrap. And obviously, she doesn't slice her face off or anything like that. Instead, she gets fully consumed, possessed by Glitchtrap. And that's how we get to the Vanny Bunny persona that we subtly saw in Security Breach. All the history lesson aside, it's just, the reason why I bring all that history lesson up is because M1 Fiona, the Mitz's machine, is tied to Glitchtrap. Interesting. My thing is why? Why is M1 tied to Glitchtrap and the Mitz's machine? Because M1 and the Mitz's machine makes sense. Because as a recap from Ruin, Mitzis is the giant bunny that you see throughout the game and everything, and you assume is a villain, a threat, trying to stop you, right? Because you as Cassie are shutting down all these security nodes, trying to release Gregory. But obviously, you're not hearing Gregory, it's the Mimic. And Mitzis, the security measure, is trying to get you prevent shutting down all the security measures, because once all the security is shut down, the Mimic is able to walk away freely. You were tricked. So, in actuality, I should say, Mitzis is the hero of the story. They are trying to prevent you from shutting down all the security. So, they're doing everything in their power to prevent the Mimic from being released and everything. Why would that be M1? Right? Because M2, why would that not be Glitchtrap and tie the Mimic and everything? Homicidal tendencies, a villain, you have that in spades. And plus, the whole point of Glitchtrap is to get people to collect the tapes so then Glitchtrap can get closer and closer to the player. And then, at least in one of the endings, because all three are the bad endings, you all fall under the possession or death of Glitchtrap. Whether you have the pizza party minigame, where you're going through the Fazbear Entertainment maze, where it ends with Glitchtrap, coming out from the curtain and luring you, a 6 or 7-year-old child, out to the stage, and then it ends with you being stuffed into an animatronic and on stage. Then another ending was you being possessed by Glitchtrap, and you mind swap like consciousness and everything, where after you mind swap, you see yourself on stage. And then the final ending is you see Glitchtrap on the outside and you're like in like some containment entrapment unit, and you see like a claw marks because people have been previously put in this like bunker, this chamber, this locked unit, and they tried to claw out trying to be released, but they couldn't. Right? So that all being said, I know, very complicated. So I was like, oh, what's all the point of this? The point of what I'm trying to make is, why would that not be M2 tied to Glitchtrap? The villain persona, and plus the whole idea of Glitchtrap is trying to get people to come to possession, mind transfer, or be possessed under the Glitchtrap cult. But then you have M2, the mimic villain that we interact with throughout the game in Seek of the Mimic. And then one of the endings is you get tricked by the mimic, by you believe to be Hand Unit, to give them the data diver. But obviously, the data diver doesn't go to Phasma Entertainment, it goes to the mimic. And that's important because now the mimic has full executive access to the M1, M2 mimic software, so they can create 1,000 mimics. They can do whatever they want, and there's no security protocol, there's no control, there's no limits, there's nothing. Because as it stands right now, they are the executive. They can do whatever they want. Similar goals with Glitchtrap and M2. Why would they not be the same?
Now, M1 is confused, still trying to bring back her family, but who her family is has become a mix of her own family, like the magician and nanny bots representing her and Edwin, with the children of the after.
Whoa, 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 whoa. This room from Skater Breach, interesting. Hold up, wait a minute. Michael, Elizabeth, Fiona, Edwin, and David. Hold the hell, hold on, okay. Hold on a minute. As a recap, this is the post-it note room you see in Security Breach if you go in the route of decommissioning Chica. Once you decommission Chica and throw them down the garbage compactor, you're down underneath the pizza plets. And then as you're escaping back up to the pizza plets and everything, you get into this room, which is the post-it note room. And this is a room that has a lot of lore implications. Post-it note rooms. There's a lot of implications that maybe at one point this was a room that Gregory hid in, or maybe Charlie Charlotte hid in at one point, the person who possessed the puppet, because a lot of puppet imagery in Security Breach. There's also a lot of post-it notes that say like the 01110001 binary, which is the language of machines, which people believe that is a robot coming to consciousness. And that connects to the FNAF 4 Crying Child because they were a kid at one point and then bitten in FNAF 4 Night 5 when shot in the mouth of Fredbear and then killed, and then I will put you back together. That was meant way more literally, where they were literally put back together as a robot. Which is something that was controversial, but is now widely accepted in the community because it has happened multiple times before where a kid gets killed, but then built in robot form. You have David with the Mimic. You have Charlie Charlotte, right? Because as recap, Charlie Charlotte dies outside the pizzeria by William Afton. Henry rebuilds them, and one of the rebuilt versions of them, of Dead Charlie, is very weirdly Baby, which makes absolutely no sense, but it did happen. But hold on one second. Michael, Elizabeth, and David. Yes and maybe. Okay, let's just go down the bar for bar. Michael, yes. Elizabeth, yes. That's obvious. Right? You have Michael Afton. That is foregone conclusion. That's obvious. If I'm not mistaken, one thing on that Michael bot is they have like some name tag for like some food service employee, which connects to Michael because we believe to be Michael Afton throughout all these games and everything. So it would make sense. So Michael, yes. Elizabeth, baby, that also makes sense. Fiona. Do we finally have the identity name of Mrs. Afton? Because at this point, we don't have anything. The only thing we as a community had to go off of for the name of Mrs. Afton was Clara from Between Nights of the Immoral and Restless show from Sister Location. That's it. The only indication of a Mrs. Afton existing was that show. Interesting. Edwin there, not being Henry or, in this case, William Afton, it being Edwin. And then you have David, the person with the head ripped off and everything. Now, this is interesting. Because in a previous game theory video we reacted to, trying to point to the name of the FNAF 4 Crying Child, when their head was bitten off, they came to the conclusion that it was Dave. Was the name of the FNAF 4 Crying Child. So going from Dave to David. Obviously, that's nitpicking here. But it's very bizarre because David doesn't have any indication of their head being ripped off or bitten off or anything. They just go out on the street, get hit by a car, and then killed. Where does the head imagery come from? Right? But the FNAF 4 Crying Child, they're shoved in the mouth of Fredbear, bitten on the frontal lobe, bitten on the side of the head. That's a lot clearer of a cut connection with a head being ripped off versus David. And my also, nitpick as well is why would this be Edwin at the table? If we're pulling out, Michael Afton, Elizabeth Afton, presumably Mrs. Afton, and David, Dave, whoever, whatever you want to say for the FNAF 4 Crying Child, you have 4 of the 5 that is connected to the Afton family, the Afton household. And then you have Edwin, who is the one person who sticks out who's not connected to the Aftons. Why would you have all these other members of the Afton family but not complete the puzzle? Why is one person intentionally not an Afton left out? That's my thing.
Family that we saw in the original run of games. But what we didn't get to talk about last time was the future of the Mimic and its connection to a character that we have been theorizing about for years.
Sun Drop and Moon Drop. Probably S tier. Actually, not probably. Without doubt, S tier. Up there, like top 3, top 5 favorite characters in the entire series. Legitimately love them.
Sun and Moon. When he first showed up in Security Breach, we knew nothing about this guy or what his purpose in the whole story was. By the time Ruin came along, it felt like he had to be connected to the Mimic, with both of them sharing the same individually moving teeth and the fact that he wears a Jester costume, which felt very connected to both the Jester costume we learnt about in the books as well as the whole Fall Fest carnival. But now we have Secret of the Mimic.
Even though clowns and jesters are not the same.
And Sun and Moon are all over this thing. We've got OG versions of the characters, we've got symbolic minigames, we've even got a mysterious lullaby, all of which make one thing extremely clear. We were 100% right about Sun and Moon being connected to the Mimic. Throughout the game, we are being shown that these 2 or 3 or I suppose 4 characters are
5 because you had an eclipse as well.
intrinsically connected in so many interesting ways, but most importantly, Sun and Moon is actually the key to not just solving the Mimic, but ending it once and for all. I hope you've knocked over all your stackable toys, friends, because it's finally time to clean up the mess that is Sun and Moon.
Nice. Because recap, the reason why the blocks and everything, cleanup and everything is, I'm assuming that's a callback to Security Breach, because they were daycare and nighttime attendants and the daycare. So those big blocks come from the daycare section, and a key mechanic in the minigame, when the lights shut off and everything, you're dealing with Moondrop, which is legitimately a terrifying scene, everything, and very tense. How to distract them to go through the 5 generators is you knock over the like stacks of, I can't remember what they're called. I don't know what they are. You knock over stacks of something, and they have to clean up before they can hunt you down, which is amazing.
But before we get started, quick reminder, on August 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be hosting first instance we get of Sun or Moon appearing in this game is right as we enter Murray's costume manor for the first time. As we head over to the computer in the security office, we can find a few options to select. Maps, obviously a map of the facility, logs, which is where we get to see all the juicy lore-filled chat logs that were found from the mailboxes strewn about the building, and then there's our main focus for today, Moon.exe. We've talked about Moon.exe in our previous episodes, but in case you missed those or the massive playthrough we did over on GT Live, it's basically a game within a game. We start in a bedroom, and while the goal is initially unclear, if you take a wrong turn, you face the wrath of Sleepy Moon, who tells you to go back to bed. Now, as you play the normal game, you can find collectibles inside of presents that you can then load into the system, and they will appear inside Moon.exe for you to use. Each one serves a specific purpose, either helping you to thwart Moon's attempts to stop you, or giving us information about Edwin and his family. In a previous episode, we've talked about the snow globe that is next to a married man and woman, where the woman looks burnt, and how it's meant to be symbolic of Edwin and Fiona Murray. But that isn't the only lore this game provides us. The initial premise of us being told to go back to bed gives you the impression that we're a child, trying to sneak out of our bedroom and go on an adventure. As we go through this adventure, we encounter a baby.
We believe this whole thing to be the M2 machine, right? At least in a previous theory, I'm not sure if they are going to interpret the same way, but we believe to be David, or the dead version of David becoming M2 and everything. And the whole point of this game and everything is it's basically, you know, Edwin trying to teach this M2 programming, M2 us, trying to keep us on the right path, right? Since remember, we're an AI, we're a machine, we're a program. And you feed in information to a program, it spits it back out. But obviously, if you put in too much information, it can obviously go diverted and get all wonky, get all very bizarre, and not focused at all. Which says a lot about what this story is. But anyways, move on. Anytime you go off the path you're supposed to go on and everything, that's when the Sleeping Moon comes out and stops you and everything, preventing you from going off on the wrong path and everything, and having you go on the right path, which is a lot like a programming, where it's like, as you program something, you want it to go on a certain direction, certain path. You want to keep it at bay. You want to keep it, you know, on the same path that you want.
Owl that we can save that then sticks with us throughout the journey, cooing and rubbing up against us like a pet. However, things take a weird turn when we encounter the old woman that lives in a cabin in the woods. This old woman has a head covered in spikes, kinda like you'd expect a sun to be represented. After fulfilling her tasks and fixing her 3 broken masks, she then hands you a final mask, the mask of a baby owl. At the same time, our baby owl friend seems to have gone missing, but the oven is now on, and there's a suspicious smell of chicken in the air. With our new mask equipped, this Sun Woman takes us to a cave that Moon is guarding, only for Moon to see the baby owl mask and to run away crying. This was the moment that things clicked for me. At first, I figured we were playing as David, with Moon being an obvious analog for his father Edwin. That's why we got explicit messages like, "Go back to bed, I'm too busy," things that Edwin would actively say to both David and his wife Fiona.
Just give me a minute. David's 2 years old. He won't remember a thing. Besides, he's got plenty more birthdays.
However, this moment where Moon, Edwin, sees us wearing a baby owl mask and then runs away crying, along with us only gaining the owl mask as the baby owl disappeared, it made me realize we weren't playing as David, but the mimic, M2. M2 was designed to mimic David perfectly, like it was wearing a mask pretending to be him. And we know that that actually really upset Edwin.
Stop, not him. You're not. Stop sounding like him.
This game, therefore,
Even though in the books, the whole point of the mimic is to recreate what it sees, aka mimicking it. So getting mad that the mimic is very good at its job at mimicking things kind of goes to show you. It's a classic thing about genies where it's like, be careful what you wish for.
Moon.exe is essentially M2 learning how to be David, being taught how to behave, like being in David's bedroom and being told to go back to bed. The baby owl, therefore, the one that we get the mask from, that disappears and dies, is the actual David. And the old woman's son, the one guiding us through the game that directs us on our journey once we have the owl mask, well, the game is pretty clear about who that is. Once you execute the parachute program and head down to the R&D department, we find M1, the original mimic, now taking on the persona of Fiona, sitting there like we spoke about last time. And on the monitor surrounding her, we see the same Sun character. M1, Fiona, is Sun. And that actually explains how M2 learned to be David in the first place. When M1 and Edwin are arguing about whether to make M2, David is already gone.
It happened, and you have to deal with it. You did it before.
So how did M2 learn to copy something that wasn't around to be copied? Well, if you saw our last episode, you'll know that M2 is actually a copy of M1's program, and M1 was around while David was alive. We even see a photo of them sitting on a hill together. So Sun, the one who is controlling and guiding this game for M2, is able to use her memory of David to help inform M2. This does bring up an interesting detail though. M1 gives M2 the owl mask, and suddenly baby owl is gone, being cooked on Sun's stove. We also know that M1 was the one that Edwin asked to go down and get David from his playground.
Fiona, go get him. I left him out at the playground.
This would seem to imply that David's death may not have been an accident after all, that M1 actually killed David in order that she could have a real family, a robot family, just like her.
Yep. And we hear about a lot once the place is burned down and everything. And it's like Fiona M1 is somewhat stuff where it's like, I miss you, Edwin, everything like that, but I also miss my child more and everything like that. It was basically implied that Fiona as M1 was pushing Edwin to make her dead son, right, M2, David. They were pushing it to be that way, to be a family again. It was Fiona's goals, not Edwin's.
We spoke last time about how she's getting confused between different iterations of Fiona, one from the books and one from the games, thanks to this note we found in the basement of MCM. It's possible that she figured out she wasn't the real Fiona, and so wanted her own family, rather than just an inherited one where she didn't really belong. But I'm aware this part's a little bit more speculative, it just occurred to me while I was writing this. Anyway, the point is that Moon.exe is showing us that Moon equals Edwin and Sun equals Fiona. Well, M1's version of Fiona. This finally explains why we see our modern Sun and Moon presented the way they are. By the time we get to Security Breach Glitch Trap, or M1 has control of the Pizzaplex. She is in control of the animatronics, which is why they turn on us in the first place.
First of all, hold on, I'm going to rewind that for a second.
By the time we...
First of all, it depends on, I've said this before, time and time again, in previous theories, but it feels like it's so long ago. It depends on what you view Glitch Trap is. Is it a computer virus? Is it William Afton? Another persona of William Afton. What is Glitch Trap?
Sun equals Fiona. Well, M1's version of Fiona.
So Sun is Fiona, Edwin is M2. Moon, yeah.
This finally explains why we see our modern Sun and Moon presented the way they are. By the time we get to Security Breach, Glitch Trap, or M1, has control of the Pizzaplex. She is in control of the animatronics, which is why they turn on us in the first place.
I know the animatronics are tied to the Mimic programming. Yeah. The animatronics are tied to the programming. That's why, for instance, it's a big deal of why Freddy does not attack you. It's like, oh, that's a very interesting game decision. But no, the reason why Freddy doesn't attack you throughout Security Breach is in the game when Freddy falls over and everything glitches out, he's booted into safe mode. Right. AKA, he's booted into safe mode, only the core requirements allowed to power him up and everything are active. But Chica, Monty, Rotzi, they're not booted in safe mode. They are fully on and everything, fully functional, allowing them to get possessed by, taken over by the Mimic software.
But when she gets control of Sun and Moon, we see that Sun is the caretaker.
Finger pain, tell stories, drink fizzy fast until our heads explode.
They are the one who wants things to be perfect and wants to win the child's affections. They are also the one during Ruin who wants to be rebooted.
Reboot. We need to be whole.
Just like M1 Fiona wants M2 to be fixed. Moon, on the other hand,
Naughty boy. It's past your bedtime.
they want the
Eclipse makes things very complicated because it's like, okay, so it's a merge of Sun and Moon. What percent is Sun talking in Persona and what percent is Moon? Like, yeah, you can hear Sun's voice there, right? But also it's like, it makes you get very bizarre, very absurd. Then again, what franchise are we talking about here? What percent is more Sun and Moon in Eclipse?
child to just go.
Because Eclipse is obviously meant to be half and half, where it's like half sun, half moon. But in reality, you hear sun more than moon there in that line in particular. So it's like, well, who's sun, who's moon? It's complicated.
To sleep and are far more aggressive, reflecting how M1 sees Edwin. She believes him to be aggressive both because of Moon.exe and, well, you know.
Stop sounding like him.
However, there is one more mention of Sun and Moon that's inside Moon.exe that I want to mention, because on the surface, it is slightly confusing. What's not confusing, though, is having gourmet quality meals prepared by...
I would say it's a little bit more than slightly confusing.
on inside Moon.exe. Once we get inside the cave that Moon was guarding, we encounter a broken statue. We go through the various tunnels and one by one find pieces of the statue, putting it back together to create a Moon-like figure. Suddenly, we're told that we have been reborn.
You rebuilt yourself, but now you are split in two. Moon and Sun, destruction and life.
So, does this throw a hole in my argument here? Sun and Moon are now being used to describe M2, not Edwin and M1. And at first, that was my concern. But as I've thought about it more, I've realized it's not about the metaphor or symbolism changing, they're actually feeding into one another. The rebuilding of the statue is reminiscent of M2 rebuilding itself after Edwin destroyed it.
You know, speaking of legs, what do you think? I just finished mine.
But then, why a moon statue? Something that specifically references Edwin. Well, because it's not the same moon. Edwin is represented by Sleepy Moon, a full moon character, but this moon is a crescent moon. This is a new character, one that is similar to Sleepy Moon, even inspired by, you could say, but it's entirely its own thing. And when we're finished, we are told that it has been reborn. M2 putting itself back together wasn't just fixing itself, it was reborn. Now with a new input. Violence. Edwin's violence. Moon's violence.
I think it would have been cool. This is going to sound like a huge nitpick. It would have been cool if That's true. If that is true. The full healed moon and everything is M2, and the broken, like, pieced off crescent moon represents, Edwin. Because remember, in that tape and everything, talking about, oh, I've, rebuilt my legs and everything, Edwin is, on his knees and everything, struggling, being beaten and everything. Meanwhile, M2 is mocking him, saying, oh, my legs are perfect and everything, I am whole. That's gonna sound like a huge nitpick.
It was no longer just the M1-based program it was before. Edwin's actions affected M2 and caused it to be reborn as the violent animatronic we know now, like a new version of the character Moon. But it isn't just Moon. We're told that it is a combination of that destruction and the life of Sun. M1 wants to create life, making M2 their son, while Edwin wants to destroy M2. These two things have combined together to make the mess that is M2, and those pieces are now at war with each other. Again, just like Sun and Moon are in Security Breach. Duality in this franchise is something that I've wanted to write a theory about for a long time. It felt like there's been so much of it in the series, from the
William and Henry,
the two-toned logo on the Ruin website, the two-colored eyes of the Tiger plushie, Sun and Moon, to even as far back as William versus Henry. It's always been about these two,
or if you want to get granular, William and Michael. William being the villain, right, as we know. Michael going location to location, trying to not only figure out why he can't die and everything, trying to figure out what's going on, but also burning places down and everything, and trying to undo his father. If we want to get even more granular.
opposing sides being mixed together into one thing, something that usually ends in a mess or tragedy. At the time, I just didn't really know where it was going in order to write the theory on it, but now I understand. This is what it was trying to tell us. Visual clues to tell us the story of Edwin and M1 Fiona without actually spelling it out. It's also why Sun and Moon's moving teeth are the same as the mimics. They may not literally be the same. Sun and Moon may not actually be a mimic, but it's visual storytelling, giving us a physical clue to their connection. We were just missing the key detail of Edwin and M1 even existing in this continuity to be able to tie it all together. Although I'm sure the lore reason for the teeth thing is once again.
Then again, this franchise is very hit or miss when it comes to clues like this, visual storytelling. Like, oh, their teeth are the exact same, there must be a connection. Because on the same token, bringing up, Midnight Motors, for instance, from FNAF 6, you have a purple car driving by and everything. All the clues point to it being William Afton, right? Like, you go to the source code later that night, referring to the thing we see in FNAF 2, but also a more clear cut in the Puppet minigame, where it's William Afton driving up in the purple car, stepping out, killing Charlie Charlotte, who's locked outside the pizzeria, killing them, and then driving off. And then it's later that night, him driving off, following the murder. And you see a purple car and everything, you expect the purple man, purple guy, William Afton, step out the car, because, later than everything points to it being William Afton. But, steps out, it's orange, it's Buster Man. That must be a different character. Well, no, it's not a different character. It's still William Afton. Even though William Afton has always been associated with the color purple, but now he's associated with a different color. So, visual storytelling details, it's hit or miss.
Just the mimic rebuilding itself with spare parts. We'll see. But Sun and Moon isn't done teaching us about the mimic just yet, because in Ruin, we get to see that these opposing sides can turn from a mess into something new. We see Sun struggling to keep control while Moon is acting dangerous, again, like we've been seeing with M2, the original program unable to keep control, with the violence taking over and attacking people. But after Cassie is able to plug in the data diver, Phaswrench, they reboot and Eclipse is born. They are calm, fun, friendly, protective, exactly as they were supposed to be. We fixed them. But did you notice the key detail? Eclipse isn't Sun now fully in control, nor is Moon completely gone. It's both halves mixed together in order to create something new. Sure, Sun was trying to help us and was the good side of both of them, but we're being shown that you actually need both sides in perfect balance in order to make things work.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
And this idea is reflected in Secret of the Mimic 2. When down in the basement, we encounter Sleepy Moon in the flesh, or cloth, or whatever it is he's made out of. And one of the telltale signs he's close by is you can hear him singing.
Oh, he's near, he's near, he's near.
It can be hard to make out the exact lyrics he's singing while you're trying desperately not to lose all your progress, but the melody should definitely ring a bell. It's actually the most popular lullaby of all time.
What? What? Okay.
Simply called Wagenlei, or lullaby in English. You may have also heard it known as Brahms' lullaby, named after its composer, Johannes Brahms. And it goes a little something like this. Lullaby and good night, with roses bed eyes, with lilies overspread, his baby's wee bed. Lay thee down now and rest, may thy slumber be blessed. Lay thee down now and rest, may thy slumber be blessed.
W Satan, Tom, W.
Thank you. Now, you could say that the use of this song was just they needed a lullaby from Sleepy Moon to sing, so they picked the most obvious one. But where has that ever been the game theory way? You see, this song wasn't written to be sung on its own. It was designed as a mother and father duet. While the mother would sing the lullaby, alongside it, the father would sing an old German folk song called Sis Andischt, which is a song that the original mother actually used to sing to Brahms when they were together. This would then work as a counter melody underneath the primary melody of the lullaby. Counter melodies are super interesting because rather than a harmony which works in lockstep with the melody, the counter melody is literally a second different melody that plays at the same time. If you try this with just any two songs, you're going to have a lot of clashes and mess, and it's just not going to work. But when done right, these two parts that don't feel like they should go together suddenly begin to almost dance. They bounce off one another, creating something totally new. It's not working together in harmony, but they do work together, despite appearing diametrically opposed. But right now, with Mimic as is, it clearly is a mess. These two forces are working against each other, not as a counter melody, but as clashing melodies. So if Eclipse and the lullaby are showing us we need to bring these pieces into alignment, how do we do that? Well, I think the answer lies in the secret ending of Secret of the Mimic. In order to get M2 to calm down enough that we can insert new programming into it, we have to play a bedtime story for it. The bedtime story itself changes each time, but what doesn't change is the people telling the story. The pre-recorded tapes that we find throughout the Murray household to get here include Edwin's voice and Fiona's voice, both of them working together to tell a story, telling M2 that violence doesn't solve anything in order to bring balance to M2. The lullaby also hints at this because it actually has one more name that I neglected to mention. It's sometimes known as the Cradle Song or Cradle Lullaby, just like
Cradle.exe.
Cradle.exe, which we spoke about last time, is Mexes, a program designed to soothe M2, keep it under control, but required M1 and Edwin to work together to implement. M1 wants to restore M2. Edwin wants to destroy all versions of the Mimic. These two things shouldn't work together. They feel like conflicting views. But when these characters come into alignment with one another, the song begins to form. M1 cannot restore M2 on her own. Sure, she may have the glitched code, but Edwin's voice was crucial for the plan working. We need to bring M1 and Edwin back together in order to truly stop whatever M2 has become, and to put both M1 and M2 to rest finally. But you may have noticed a problem with that solution. As far as we can tell, Edwin is dead.
All of them are dead. Edwin's dead. Fiona's dead, David's dead. Basically, everyone's dead. The only people who don't die that we know about in the series, everyone else is dead except for William Afton and Michael Afton. Everyone else is dead. Henry's dead, Charlotte's dead, Edwin's dead, Fiona's dead, David's dead. All of them are dead.
A minor detonation. There is damage to my office interior, as well as a small fire.
No! M2! Respond, please! I can't move. I can't feel my legs.
M2 blew up part of the house and refused to help Edwin while it burnt and collapsed around him. But remember what franchise we're talking about here, friends. Just because someone is dead doesn't mean they're truly gone. In fact, Moon basically tells us as such with the lullabies he's singing. Oh yeah, this thing still has a lot to give in terms of lore significance, and it's to do with the more meta side of it. Why it was written and who it was written for. Brahms wrote this lullaby for his close friend Bertha Faber. Brahms and Faber used to date many years before, which is when she used to sing Sis Arndish to him, a song about a shepherd and his lover. When they reconnected years later, she was married to someone else, had a child with another on the way. Brahms wrote this lullaby for the birth of that second child, but it wasn't a completely selfless, sweet act. He wrote it so that when she and her husband sang it together to their baby, he would also be there. It was a way of making sure he was connected to her always, even when he wasn't physically around. If Moon is supposed to represent Edwin, and he's the one singing this song, it makes me think that we're being told that while he may be physically gone, he's not completely gone.
No one's ever really gone. God.
He's just someone.
All the Disney references, once again, perfectly balanced as all things should be. No one's ever really gone. God. At this point, why not throw FNAF in Disney?
Somewhere hidden, somewhere we wouldn't expect. And that somewhere, I believe, is Princess Quest. Because I think that Edwin is the king.
Edwin's the king, not Old Man Consequences, not Henry. Okay.
Otherwise known as Old Man Consequences. Okay.
Alright, let me think about that for a second. So, Edwin is Old Man Consequences, which we've always believed it to be someone like, Henry. Trying to think for a second. So, before we dive into this, knowing what we know about Old Man Consequences from Custom Night is all about, rest in your own soul. There is nothing else. Hey, or, come sit beside me and come fish and everything. It's peaceful. It's quiet. Rest your own soul. There is nothing else. Lead the demon to his demons. Right? And I'm assuming the demon would be M2, the homicidal tendency maniac, to his demons. I don't know about that. And as far as the king from Princess Quest, we see even less of him. He talks even less than Old Man Consequences in Custom Night. But it's all about... See, Old Man Consequences and the king from Princess Quest, it's very bizarre because of... Here we go again. The clash in sides. So maybe it is. Maybe it is him. Right? But the clash in sides here is so confusing. Because you have Old Man Consequences. Once again, leave the demon to his demons. Rest your own soul. There's nothing else. Chill out and everything. But then the king gives the princess the sword to go ham at everything and kill everyone. So it's rest your own soul, but also kill everyone. And we know the princess is believed to be Cassidy. Right? Because at one point people thought the princess from Princess Quest was Vanessa, because it was them slowly coming into the possession of Glitchtrap being taken over. But that didn't really make much sense, because if the princess is Vanessa, why would Glitchtrap send these like evil rabbits to go after them and kill them? Why would there be rabbits there sent to stop them? Wouldn't you, if you want Vanessa to be taken over by you, wouldn't you just give them a free run through and everything instead of trying to prevent them from stopping them? Right? If your whole goal is wanting Vanessa to be taken over by you, then why prevent them? Why send threats to stop them and slow them down? That doesn't make any sense. But then the flip side, you have Cassidy, who has always been linked to William Afton, has always been the vengeful spirit, has always tried to stop William Afton. Then that makes sense for William Afton, Glitchtrap, to send rabbits to try to stop them, slow them down and everything. Because now Cassidy and William Afton have always been connected, but now all of a sudden they're a threat. But you also believe Cassidy is only consequences because of the gator elongated mouth. And we know in the book, take this as well, one of the Fantasy Frights books, in a book that we have assumed to be linked to the whole Cassidy-William Afton storyline, where Cassidy is linked to William Afton as a vengeful spirit. They will not die, no matter what. They are wearing an alligator mask. Andrew is wearing an alligator mask. And they're tied to someone who cannot die for whatever reason. There's some Holy Spirit poltergeist will not let them die. AKA, a vengeful spirit is not letting them die until they've had enough. Then here we go again. Cassidy, Andrew, William Afton.
Before you start writing in the comments about how I followed in Matt's footsteps and I've lost my mind to this franchise, hear me out. I'm not the only person to have had this idea. This idea was actually brought up during our recent live theory crafting session by fellow FNAF theorist Gibby's Horror Homestead.
Oh, I see that, Gibby Horror Homestead. Edwin as old man consequence. Hello, Gibby. Great for you to join us. This thought actually occurred to me today.
And not only had the thought occurred to me earlier that day, since then, I've not been able to get it out of my head. It just makes so much sense to me. I mean, Edwin is the ultimate man of consequence. His creation of crazy gadgets landed him in bed with Fazbear, who...
I mean, he's not the only one. He's one of, sure, but he's not the only one to deal with consequences or see the negatives of his actions. Right? You have, Henry making the puppet security protocol and everything, trying to prevent another incident because William Afton, his business partner, lured kids to a back room and killed them. So, as a response, Henry made the security puppet, trying to have all the kids wear these wristbands, trying to keep them safe at bay and prevent another incident. Very similarly, in FNAF 2, the toy animatronics had that security database inside them to prevent another incident. But obviously, Charlie Charlotte, with the green wristband, was locked outside the pizzeria, and the security puppet was programmed to follow and keep track and keep safe the person with the green wristband. But unfortunately, Charlie Charlotte was locked outside the pizzeria and killed. And that's where the puppet and Charlie Charlotte would go on to possess. Henry making a security protocol led to his child dying. Right? You have William Afton making the Funtime-atronics, where they are meant to lure and encapsulate kids, is his biggest downfall because he tells his daughter, Elizabeth, to not go near Baby and the other Funtime-atronics, they're dangerous. But that curiosity of a child got the best of them. They got too close to Baby, and then were scooped to death. Right? And then flip side as well, making the Springlock animatronics, the Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie in FNAF 4, shoving the crying child in the mouth and then get chomped, getting snapped because moisture got into the Springlocks, which caused them to snap shut and killed his son. So Edwin sure suffers a lot and had to, atone for his sins and consequences, but he's not the only one.
Who then took everything from him. His rushed inventions meant things could go wrong easily, so Fiona went to Fall Fest to make sure that didn't happen, and she died. He didn't pay enough attention to his son, and so David ended up dead. He created an incredibly powerful AI and then beat it up, and so in return, it killed him. Everything Edwin did came back to bite him on the butt. Consequence, thy name is Edwin. Plus, in the Tales from the Peterplex story, The Storyteller, Edwin does come back 40 years later and tries to stop the Mimic. And Old Man Consequences in Security Breach is all about equipping the princess to defeat the Glitch Trap virus, aka the M1 program that's been corrupted by Afton's influence and is now running the Peterplex.
So in turn, Edwin is giving Cassidy the M1 software. That's literally what that means, or at least that's what it's implying. Edwin gives Cassidy the M1 software, the Fiona, Mrs. Machine program. Okay.
We also know that Game Edwin wants to stop the Mimic. Both Mimics.
I let a machine raise my kid. You're not real. What was I thinking?
He realized what he'd created and that it couldn't replace the real thing, which is why he didn't want to fix M2. Instead, just going along with the plan to create mexes to pacify it. Now, I'm not saying that Edwin is possessing Princess Quest or anything like that. Modern FNAF requires modern solutions, and so I believe it's more likely that, like M1 isn't really Fiona, but the M1 program mimicking Fiona, that this is another program designed to imitate Edwin, like a digital signature of sorts. In the real world, programmers will sometimes physically put part of themselves into their code. They will leave a line of code or even just a few letters or symbols so that when someone else takes a look, they will know whose code it is. We actually see Gregory do this in GGY. When the animatronics begin behaving strangely, the characters take a look at the code and find the letters GGY all over the place. It's not really doing anything, it's just a digital signature to let you know that this was Gregory's doing. At this point, M1 has been integrated into basically every part of Fazbear Entertainment's technology. M1 is running the show, corrupting everything, but M1 was Edwin's code. He created it, and so I'm suggesting that deep in that programming lies a little piece of himself, almost like a failsafe that's there trying to fight back. Old Man Consequences. In FNAF World, he was buried deep in that code. But as time's gone on,
In FNAF World, that's the first time we see Old Man Consequences. He says he admits to creating Baby, the baby animatronic, which is not true because we know that Afton Robotics patented, copyrighted, and made the Funtime animatronics, including Baby. And we know Old Man Consequences, also in FNAF World, let an animatronic kill themselves. Right? Kill Old Man Consequences. Because they were ashamed of what they did. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. If I'm not mistaken, that also links to Henry. Henry's Mimic program from the Charlie Charlotte bot also killed him.
Slowly come more and more to the surface, able to help more and more. He helped Vanny fight back against the Glitch Trap virus. We even saw Moon, the character we've talked about representing Edwin, giving over Glitch Trap to Vanny so that she could crush it and be free of its influence at the end of Princess Quest 4. And I think
that's a good point. I did not think of that. I forgot that Moon was the character you hand Glitchtrap over to Vanny to and release her from the virus. That's a good call out.
In whatever sequel Steelwell has planned, we're going to have to help Old Man Consequences one last time to free M1 of Glitchtrap's influence and bring Edwin and M1 together to stop M2.
Because remember, before we even get to that arcade machine, Old Man Consequences, the king, is standing outside the room and everything. And they say, oh, I need to trade something. And you hand the Bonnie mask that you get from the chest after you light the torches of the Death or Gravestone Order. You get the chest of a Bonnie mask. Then you hand that to him. It says, oh, seems like a fair trade. And you get the plush Glitchtrap in return. And that's what you hand to Moon. And that's what Vanny crushes. Interesting. Interesting theory. Interesting idea. There you go. I don't know how else to start this and everything. It'll be like the new background and everything. But yeah, interesting idea. Interesting theory. Very interesting. I would say the main thing I have to sleep on and think about for a second is Old Man Consequences being tied to Edwin. Because, yeah, sure. Like, I'm not saying I disagree that Edwin had to reap the benefits, the consequences, and he had to suffer for his poor choices and actions. I agree. He did. Right? Like, we've talked about it before in previous theories. You know, him being so focused on trying to recreate the magic and the popularity from the vacuum cleaner and these like other inventions like the coat hanger, right? And all these like other inventions, they didn't work properly. They were not as famous and as popular as the vacuum, and that drove him crazy. 100%. He does suffer the consequences. But at the same time, though, it's not unique to him. He's not the only one who suffers consequences. So I don't know about that. Right? It seems like a common trend more often. Pretty much every character that we have a name for has to deal with some consequence. They have to repay for some sin. Right? That's Edwin's sin. M1 Fiona, their whole mission is trying to create a robot family, trying to rebuild their family in the way that they want. Since, hey, I'm a robot, I want to make my robot family. That in turn causes human David to die, but also Edwin to die. So they have to deal with those consequences. William Afton, we brought up earlier of how creating the Funtime-Electronics, right, their sin was getting their kids killed. Whether it was Dave or David, whoever you want to say the FNAF 4 Crown Child is, getting shoved in the mouth of Fredbear, he made the Springlock suits. For better or for worse. And having moisture on the Springlock suits caused them to snap shut and killing their son. And also, the Funtime-Electronics, they made the Funtime-Electronics trying to lure, encapsulate kids. That in turn caused Elizabeth Afton to be curious in what's going on and everything. And they believe that William Afton made baby animatronics specifically in the likeness and for Elizabeth for herself personally. That curiosity caused her to get too close and killed. And then from that point forward, Elizabeth Afton and baby were permanently linked. So William Afton had to deal with those consequences. Then Henry, with the security puppet, as I mentioned earlier, they made the security puppet protocol trying to prevent another incident that in turn got their child to die. Because the puppet that day in the puppet minigame from FNAF 6 was tied to follow the green wristband, who was Charlie Charlotte. But Charlie Charlotte was locked outside the pizzeria and killed. The puppet security protocol was not able to do their job because they allowed another child to be killed while it was on watch. So Henry had to suffer those consequences. And then even Michael Afton, right? If we believe the Foxy Bro older brother from FNAF 4 is Michael Afton, then you now have Michael Afton following the bullying of his younger brother, and then it ending with him getting shoved in the mouth of Fredbear and dying. Michael Afton then goes from location to location, trying to undo his sin, realizing what he went wrong, causing his younger brother to die off of his actions, his bullying alone. He's now going location to location, trying to undo his father's sins, trying to repay, trying to make amends of his mistake, which caused his younger brother to die. Right? So, I don't disagree that Edwin has to deal with his consequences. That I don't disagree with. It's just the fact of the matter is, it's not a mutually exclusive thing with Edwin. It's pretty much a thing where, at this point in the series, every important named character has had some consequence, has had to repay for some sin. So why is it exclusively tied to Edwin when it's pretty much everyone is tied to this at some point? Or still doing it, at least in the case of like Michael Afton. That's my nitpick. That's my counter.